you, Mr. President. I rise today to talk about the importance of unleashing American energy. The consequences of President Biden's refusal to invest in American energy, the impact that this is having on energy states like West Virginia and Texas, and what steps we can do to move forward to fix the mistakes made by the White House and the jeopardy that they have put our country in. President Biden has made his stance on American energy clear since day one of his administration. As president, his policies and personnel choices have delivered on his campaign promises, and high prices are just part of the bargain. The administration has canceled pipelines, rescinded previously issued approvals for others, and raised barriers to building new ones. They have frozen oil and gas leasing and proposed raising royalties, costs that will be passed on to the consumer. And the Biden EPA has continued to layer regulation on regulation. Though I'm pleased to report earlier today, through the congressional resolution, we pulled down the WOTUS rule that the EPA had recently put forward in last December. These are just a few of the unreasonable and misguided policy decisions this administration has made that has led to what we are facing today. Congressional Democrats have not been shy about their stance on an all-of-the-above energy future. Look no further than the two pieces of legislation that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle boast about the most: the American Rescue Plan and the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. Just last week, while I was questioning President Biden's head of the Environmental Protection Agency, I was asking him about his agency's budget. Administrator Regan admitted that because of the Inflation Reduction Act, coal capacity and natural gas generation will plummet in the future. This is the coal capacity. With the IRA, it's way down here below 50. If there had been no IRA, it would be somewhere here around the 80. So let me say that again. Through data generated by the EPA and admitted to be true by the head of the administration, coal capacity and natural gas generation will be significantly lower in our country because of the Inflation Reduction Act. Here's natural gas. No IRA up here, with the IRA way down here by 2040. He went even further, Administrator Regan did, and admitted the misguided policies with an Inflation Reduction Act will lead to the closure of coal and natural gas plants. This will lead to the shuttering of proud energy-producing communities across my state of West Virginia and our country, moving us further away from the energy independence that we desperately need and want. This clearly spells out the priorities of this president and underscores the urgency needed in reversing these policies. On top of all of this, the out-of-control reckless spending and Green New Deal priorities packaged in the American Rescue Plan have caused energy prices to soar alongside record inflation. So let's take a look at the consequences of President Biden's war on American energy by the numbers. When he took office, the average price for a gallon of gasoline was $2.39. Now the average price is $3.44, a 44% increase. But let's not forget what we just lived through 9 months ago when the record was set when gas prices averaged about $5 a gallon for the first time in history. High gas costs like this just create a domino effect. In fact, increased fuel costs and shortages have made it more expensive to manufacture goods, to deliver goods, and ultimately to provide what we want and need in this country. It's made everything more expensive. This creates additional strain on our supply chains and feeds into the inflation that so many families continue to struggle with. Think about the cost of food at the grocery store. Adding to this, the price that Americans paid to heat their homes when winter came on, no matter what utility you use, it went up. Whether it's natural gas, electric, oil, or renewables, all prices up. Those who heat their homes with natural gas are at the highest disadvantage, paying 25% more extra this winter just to keep their homes warm. This truly shows that no matter what, there is no escaping the consequences that President Biden and congressional Democrats have created by turning their head on American energy. The good news is we know what we need to do to unleash American energy and move critical projects forward. Republicans and Democrats know it alike. We all know it. We must make genuine reforms to our nation's permitting and environmental review processes. For example, it should not take 7 to 10 years to permit a mine or a large transportation project in the United States. It should not be typical for endless legal challenges to be filed one after another for the sole purpose of postponing and ultimately killing key energy projects. And projects that create jobs, produce energy of all kinds, and drive down costs should not be delayed or stopped because of burdensome regulations. The current system hamstrings states and employers who are trying to build anything here in the United States, and it needs to change. We need to provide regulatory certainty to our states. We need to expedite permitting and review processes while ensuring all environmental considerations are completed. We need to codify substantive environmental regulatory reforms and jumpstart key projects, like in my state, the critically important Mountain Valley Pipeline. Together, we should address Section 401 of the Clean Water Act. We should streamline the NEPA process with real deadlines for agency reviews, and we should limit judicial review to avoid endless litigation that delays and sometimes cancels projects. I want to be very clear when I say projects, I mean projects of any kind. That means both renewable and conventional sources of energy. We've made great strides in advancing cleaner energy sources, but without the ability to build and build quickly, we will not capitalize on that process. Unfortunately, at every turn, the Biden administration has made it harder for any of these projects to move forward. I mentioned earlier the Waters of the U.S. rule, the WOTUS rule. It significantly expands the federal government's authority when it comes to water sources across the country and will mean more people have to get more permits and deal with more red tape, many times on their own private farmland. Fortunately, we challenged that rule through a Congressional Review Act, and it passed in a bipartisan way, both the House and the Senate, and will go to the President's desk. It's up to him. Have you listened to the voices of the American people, or will you continue with these tactics that you've been doing? So, what we need to do, and why we need to do it, and how do we get it done? I've been saying all along that I believe the best solutions are going through regular order, bipartisan, through our committees, through Environment and Public Works, through the Energy Committee, through any other committee that has relevant actions towards permitting. It's where we can hear those who know these issues the best. We can formulate solutions, hash out our differences, and compromise. I believe that's the only way that we can get permitting reform across the line, and I'm willing to do whatever I can. I'm glad the House is taking a first swing at this and sending us a great starting point for how we can finally address America's broken permitting process and give a boost to energy production right here at home. There's no denying there's growing momentum in the Senate to get real, legitimate permitting reform across the finish line and signed into law. I've had many, many conversations. I encourage my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to heed the increased call for energy independence and help us deliver that all-of-the-above solution that we all say we want that increases our national security, creates jobs and keeps good jobs at home, and lastly, and very important, lowers the energy cost for American families. With that, I'm proud to be here with my fellow Republican senators who have the solutions to energy independence, and with that, I yield the floor.